Over the last few days, I've been digging into PhantomWP and getting to grips with the workflow, how it works, the development environment, and so on. Now, if you're new to PhantomWP, it's basically a development environment that you can use to create Astro-based sites. Now, consider Astro to be like HTML, but with some added benefits. One of the cool things you can do with this is you can connect up WordPress and use it kind of like a headless CMS. So you could have that on its own dedicated domain, pull the data into PhantomWP, and then serve a static-based site using Astro. There's lots of reasons why you may want to do this. I'm not going to cover those in this video. If you are watching this, chances are you already know the benefits of working in this way. So in this video, which isn't a deep dive kind of tutorial, it's a let me just show you how to get started, and then you are off to the races. So we're going to see in this video how to create your first environment with PhantomWP. We're going to see then how we can connect up an MCP. In my example, we're going to use Codex, but you can use Claude, or you can use an API to connect directly into the PhantomWP editor itself. We'll then see how we can connect up WordPress and how we can pull data over, and we'll just see how these different components connect to each other and how we can push things up to GitHub, or if you want to put to other places, you absolutely can do, like Cloudflare, Vercel, and so on. But once you've kind of seen this, hopefully it'll whet your appetite onto what you can do and the basics of getting you up and running. Now, first of all, I'm not associated or affiliated with PhantomWP at all. While there's an affiliate plan there, I'm not a member of it. I don't get any kickbacks from this. I just like what the product does. I like the developer and what he's doing. So there's no financial incentive to me for showing you this. So let's take a quick look at the pricing first of all, because obviously that's a key factor here. Now you'll notice that there is a launch deal, lifetime deal, but there's only a limited number of those left. So if you wanted to grab those, you can do. And if we jump over to the pricing, you can see you've got your starter, you've got your founders, and you've got your agency. Now currently, the only one available is the lifetime, because this is still a beta product. But the official version 1 release should be out relatively soon. So there's pricing. That's what's included. Pause the video, have a look for yourself. If you want to jump on it, link will be down below. As you can see at the time of releasing this, there's 35 licenses left at that initial founder's lifetime price. Okay, so that being said, let's go and log in and take a look at the actual development environment itself. So as you create an account and you log in, you'll see this is what you have. I've already got one environment here, but we're going to start completely fresh. You'll also notice on the right-hand side, we've got this connected to GitHub, so you can click on the Manage on GitHub. So all you need to do is connect your GitHub account. Again, totally free account. I'm not using any paid account there for GitHub. You can connect that up. Same thing goes for Vercel, or if you want to deploy this to Cloudflare workers, you can do that. I haven't connected either of those up. I'm simply using GitHub for this example. So let's create a new project. Now what we can do is we can choose how we want this project to be set up. Do we want to start completely fresh? Do we want to duplicate an existing? Or do we want to pull a site in from a URL from GitHub? So you can pull things in here. So if you were sharing your environment, you could pull it in from a GitHub if you wanted to. We're going to start with a completely fresh setup, which is what most of us are going to be doing to start off with. And let's give this a name. We'll call it PhantomWP test. And we're going to set this to be a private repository. So this isn't publicly available on GitHub. And then if you want to, you can pull in a template. So you've got a starter, minimal starter, or WooCommerce. Now, obviously, if you choose the WooCommerce, you are going to have to connect this up to WordPress. We're going to keep this really, really simple. Let's go for the starter here. So you can see this gives us a basic layout, minimal styling, easy to customize and build anything. We don't want to use Tailwind. We're going to use our own CSS. So let's choose that. Then you can choose your development environment. Now, I'm not using local. I'm not using Docker, but you could use Docker Desktop if you wanted to. We're going to say we're going to set this up inside the GitHub Codespaces. There's some advanced options here if you want to, but we're going to leave those as they are. So we're going to say create and launch the Codespace. That's going to take a few moments now. You can see it tells us it's going to take about around 4 minutes to kind of set this up, because it's creating the repository, initializing templates, set up the Codespace, configuring what needs to be configured inside GitHub, and so on. So I'm going to leave that run. Once that's finished, we will then push on with the rest of the video. There we go. We are now set up. Took about 4 minutes, so that wasn't too bad. Okay, so this is the Phantom Studio, which is what PhantomWP is kind of being rebranded to. So to get away from that perception that is WordPress only, which I think is the right move. First thing you notice now on the right-hand side is we have our GitHub, but it's telling us we need to confirm we're happy to connect up to this. So we can say, yep, let's go for that. Say continue. So that's now pulled in a basic page layout for us. So we've got something to see how it all works. Now, like I say, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail, but let me give you a quick overview of the interface and some of the things you need to be aware of with how this all works. So if we take a look at the interface, you can see it's broken down into a typical IDE, a development environment. You've got the icons on the left-hand side that allow you to enable and disable the different panels. So for example, we've got our sort of site structure, all our files and everything are all listed inside here. Our code view we can enable, our preview which we can enable and disable. You've then got your page structure, which will show you a kind of typical structure panel like you'd expect to see in things like bricks and Elementor and so on, showing the various different component pieces you can see. So your header, your main section there that contains your hero, features, CTA section, and so on. So this is all the different parts inside here, which you can click on and expand and get more information on them. Again, you can open and close this down. Then you've got your AI panel, so you can open this up. You can connect your API key if you want to work inside here, and you can work in 3 different modes: Ask, Plan, and Agent. Very similar to what you expect to see inside one of the sort of tools you have, the desktop options for Claude and so on. Plan, for example, doesn't require as many tokens. So when you're planning an idea and you want to kind of just like ideate, it probably makes more sense to use Plan, Agent when you actually want to build. And that's if you want to work inside here. We're going to work in Codex externally because from a token point of view, it does work out cheaper in my experience. So let's close that down. And then finally, you've got your terminal, which you can open up and you can interact with the terminal on your local development machine, should you want to use that. So we take a look down at the left-hand side, you can see things are broken down into a particular hierarchy: your components, your menu, your config, your data, your layout, your library, your media, your pages, and so on, and then your styles and things underneath. This is going to be very, very different to what you're used to if you're coming from WordPress only. However, if you come from a more coding background, this is probably going to feel relatively familiar to you. So your components, for example, are going to be the various different asset blocks inside your design. So for example, a hero section is considered a component. A call to action section could be a component, and then they become reusable. And this is what you're seeing inside here, inside the index.astro, which is your index file, your homepage file. It's importing the various different parts. So your layout-based layout, your components header, your footer, your hero, your features, your CTA section. So this is like an include if you come from a HTML background. You could create small component pieces and then you could pull those in by using an include. And that's exactly the kind of thing that's happening here. It's just being referred to as import. Then inside, you've got your base layout, which is basically your overall template kind of structure. So your header, and you can see it's just using the code, the short code for referencing these imported files, these imported component files. So your hero, your feature section, your CTA. So if you want to move them around, you can literally just copy those or cut them and put them where you want, and it'll reorder things for you from there. So that's basically what the structure is doing here. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than this as you kind of grow and expand, but that fundamentally is the basics of what you're seeing set up here. And you can obviously enable and disable any of these options. Across the top, you'll see you've got some menus. So if we open this up, under design, you've got your section library. This will show you the various different sections that you can simply import. Consider these to be like sort of starter wireframe template ideas. And you can see they're broken down, hero sections, footers, and so on. And you can either replace the site footer if you're referencing a footer or a header, for example, or you can copy the code, or you can add this directly to the index.astro file. And you can see you've got various different color schemes you can reference here as well. So you can pull those in based upon what you want. And you can see the different responsive breakpoint versions of these. And you can preview them. You can preview the code. So it's pretty simple, self-explanatory. You can view these in different ways. You can view your templates as well. So your blank starter, your landing pages, and so on. So there's templates here. So if you want to pull something in so you can play around with it to get a feel for it, whether it's a section like a component section or an overall template, you could do that from here as well. If you come in, then you can see you've got more options here. You get your theme studio, your font manager, icon manager. So you can see there's tons of different icons here you can reference and use in your designs. You've also got your menu builder, your form settings. So you can use forms even though this is static. So you can set up forms options in here. And if you are using Claude Design, you can import that design in and use that as a starting point. Coming to WordPress, which we'll take a look at in a little bit more detail once we connect it up to a site. But you've got your site settings, you can browse the content, the media manager, and the API Explorer. Your site, you can set up your SEO, your sitemap, and your progressive web application configuration. And then under more, you've got different things inside, like infrastructure, connect an AI agent, snapshots, etc., etc. So lots of options here. You can see we're connected. We can save. So when we make changes, this will pop up. We can save it to push those to the actual preview. And then you can open this preview in an external tab. You can connect this up to various different parts of your GitHub. So for example, we're currently connected to the main branch, but if you wanted to create extra branches, for example, testing out an alternative design, and the developer released a great video on this, I would recommend checking out his channel. I'll link that down below on how that works. And that's pretty cool because if you are working on a completely new design, you can push that over to a different branch. Once the client is happy, you could then push that over and replace the production branch with the actual live version of it. So that's pretty cool. And obviously you get all the benefits of GitHub with version control, all those kinds of cool things. Once you're ready to commit, you can commit it from here, and you can see we've got options for the history, the view the changes. So all those different options here for working with GitHub, including the different branches you have available. And you can also pull from GitHub. So if multiple people are working on a project using Phantom Studio or anything else, and they're pushing it up to GitHub, you can pull it down from there as well to work on the latest version. So again, pretty cool. You can publish, you can set up your deploy, and you can check all your services are currently running. And then in your preview window, you've got things like, let me just make this a little bit bigger. Switch between your various different breakpoints to check everything scales correctly, adjust your sizing. You can inspect anything on the page by just going over it, and you can see, we can see exactly what is being referenced there. You can click and you can see the full hierarchy, and you can make changes and modify it with AI and all those kinds of cool things. You can check out the classes, so you can see what classes are being used, and you can check out any components. So there's our header, there's our hero, our features, and so on. So it's a nice visual environment to work with, and then you can see there in this example is the URL for GitHub, and we can go over and take a look at that as a live preview. Now, if you're enjoying this content, why not hit that thumbs up button and share it so more people learn about this and they can learn how to get started using Phantom Studio for themselves. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get on with the rest of the video. So that's the interface in its bare bones, kind of an overview. So now we've seen that, the first thing we want to do is go and connect this up to Codex, because we want to start using this with our AI tool of choice. Like I say, you don't have to use AI. You can easily come in here. If you're comfortable working with HTML and you want to work with Astro and just use this as a visual development environment, you absolutely can do. But I know a lot of people are going to want to use this with something like Claude or Codex and get that to do the heavy lifting, and then use this as a nice development environment to connect up to GitHub or Vercel or connect it over to Cloudflare. You know, you get the idea. So if we come into more and we come down to Connect AI Agent, you can see build the site from Claude Code, Codex, or Cursor. Let's click on it. Tell it we're going to be using Codex. And we're going to say generate connection for Codex. So let's just click to open that up. And that now gives us the relevant information. Now, the first part is the connection string. This is what we're going to tell Codex to use to connect up to this instance inside Phantom Studio or PhantomWP. And then we've got our first prompt, which kind of tells it how to work and how to work inside Phantom Studio and how to interact with Astro. So it means that you get much closer to what you're asking a lot quicker, and therefore you don't burn through tokens anywhere near as fast. So first of all, let's copy this configuration, hop over to Codex, and inside there, I've already created a folder, connected this up. So we've got a plain starting point. We're going to simply paste this inside here, say go and do that. Now this will be revoked, so you can't mess about with this once I finish this tutorial. So whatever you see there will be gone by the time you see the video. Just letting you know. So say I'll write this into your Codex. We're going to say yes, we want to allow that. So we'll go through the process now of connecting this up. It may take a few moments, as most of these times, setting up MCPs and things like that inside Claude, Codex, and so on. So I'm going to go through this. Once that's done, we'll pull in that next set of instructions. There we go. After probably about 10-15 seconds, that now has connected. We need to restart Codex for this MCP to be all connected and working. So I'm going to do that next. So there you go, that MCP now is connected and set up. So let's go and put that second instruction in from Phantom Studio. We'll simply copy it, paste it in, And as you can see, there's a lot of instructions on how to handle things, work rules, and so on. So it understands what to do. So you don't have to create this. Consider this, it's like your design MD file. It's kind of telling it how to work inside the environment. So let's just commit that. You can see that's now going to go through and it'll think and say, okay, I'm going to do all the things you've asked me to do. And once everything is connected up and we've got those instructions there, we can now check to make sure everything is connected and working. There we go. So now that's connected. So let's just check to make sure that everything is working. There we go. We're now connected to that particular MCP. So now we are connected to PhantomWP or Phantom Studio. So let's close this down. Now, first thing I want to do is let's just get rid of everything that's included here. So obviously we can do that ourselves. So all we need to do is delete everything, but let's just use the AI to just make sure that everything is working correctly. So let's just minimize out of this so we keep the biggest preview and we can see what's going on from a code point of view. We'll just use Codex. So we just decided to remove everything from the index.astro page except for the header and footer components because we want them to be on every page. So let's ask it to do that. Okay, there we go. It's now told us exactly what it's done. Let's go back and check. As you can see, everything is gone except for the header and the footer. Now, you obviously could just start telling it what you want to do, but let's just use some reference images to kind of test out how good or bad it is at actually creating various different layouts. For our example, I wanted to create a kind of layout like this. It's not too taxing. It's relatively straightforward, but there are a couple of sort of overlapping elements and so on. Now, this is a Brixies layout, so you know that I use Brixies in a lot of my tutorials, and I use it for a lot of the work that I do inside Bricks on my own projects. It's a great library. But like I said, this is Astro. We're not using WordPress, so let's just screen grab this. We'll copy that, head over into Codex, and paste that in, and just tell it what we wanted to do. We're keeping these instructions super simple. Create a hero component using the attached design. Ensure it's fully responsive and accessible. So we're going to say, go and do that. And we'll let it go and create what it needs to create. Now, while this is a relatively simple example, it's basically just wireframing and like the design idea. It's more a case to show you how these tools interact with each other than going down a complex design. You can obviously spend as much time as you want, and the deciding factor here is more to do with the AI tool you're using than it is to do with Phantom Studio or PhantomWP. But it's a good example of how you can utilize these tools together. So once we've seen this and how this works, we'll then move on and take a look at how we connect this up to WordPress and how we can use the AI to pull in live data from our WordPress site. There we go. Just a little over 3 minutes, it's gone and created that for us. And you can see it comes back and tells us what's been changed, what's been added, the accessibility responsiveness. So the hero uses the ARIA labeled by on a single H1, decorative collage is hidden from assistive tech with the ARIA hidden, etc., etc. So it's coming back and telling us what it's done. So let's go and take a look now inside Phantom and see what's going on there. So this is now on our homepage. You can see there's still have our navigation, our header section at the top. It's brought that in. There's a couple of little discrepancies here. For example, this card and this card are not in the exact same position as the reference image. But again, we could nitpick with these and get it to fine tune it to get exactly what we wanted to. But for the most part, it's not too bad. And the same with these images here. They're not stacked exactly like you would expect. But again, this is more to do with the AI tool than it is with this. Okay, so we've seen how we can use AI to handle pulling in our designs. Like I say, really simple example, but shows you the workflow. Now, let's go over to WordPress. And from there, let's say Site Settings. And now this allows us to connect up to a site. You can download the plugin. Now, obviously, we don't have one here yet, so I'm going to use a site that I already got that set up on. But all you need to do is install the plugin, drop the URL inside here, and connect. That's basically it. So let me show you. So here's my site and my plugins, and as you can see, PhantomWP Connect, that's now connected up. So all we need to do is grab the URL, just the main URL, nothing else, copy that, paste that inside here, and say fetch. That's it. It's now connected. So that's going to go through and check what content is available there. And it comes back, tells us there's 4 posts, 3 pages, 3 categories, a bunch of tags, and audience 0 authors. But there you go. And there's 43 media files there. So we can now choose how we handle that media. So do we want to download and optimize it locally, or you can keep that on an existing CDN? I'm going to say leave that as it is because I don't want to take those images off here. This is just a demonstration, but you do whatever works the best for your project. And you can see we've got security. So you can tell us information about how this all works and any deployments, but we're going to just leave this as it is and say Save Settings. So we'll say, yep, let's update those files. That's going to take a few moments now to go through and save the connection and set everything up for us. Once that's done, we'll then have a connection to our WordPress website and the content that's available on there, and we can start pulling that into PhantomWP. There you go, all done. So let's go back to the AI and ask it to create something for us that will pull in that data. Okay, so let's do it. I'll just send it, create a new section for the latest 4 posts from the connected WordPress website and display them in date order. And then just telling it what information I want to put in and the kind of layout that I want. So let's go and just tell it to also add that to the index. And just tell it where we want to install it or where we want to add it. So let's click on confirm to send that. And as per usual, it tells us what it's going to do. But I'll let this kind of run and then we'll go and see what it's come back with at the end. As you can see, it's telling us it's going to create the latest posts.astro rather than bloating the index.astro file. So this is where it's creating those components like we saw earlier on in the video, and then just referencing those inside the index.astro file. This means that we have sort of componentized different pieces that we can reference on other pages should we want to. It gives us a much more flexible way of working, and also keeps the index Astro file pretty slim and very easy to read, because you just basically import in those various different components into that particular page. There we go. After a few moments, it's now done what we've asked it to do. So let's jump over. There's our setup. Let's scroll down. And there's our from the blog. Now, obviously, they don't look the best, and I would want to change those. But let's just say we want to change that design. Well, let's just go back to the AI and tell it. We'll also ask it to add some extra things there, the post date and so on. So again, let's just confirm this. Now, obviously, you can do this as you go along, or you can be very specific in your initial prompt. It all depends on how you work when it comes to working with tools like AI. That's now updated based upon the feedback that we gave it. So the images are at the top, we've got the date it was posted, the read time, etc., etc. So we've only really covered the basics here, that enough to kind of get you started. You obviously, if you want to create the individual templates for the different posts and things, you just tell the AI to do it, to create those layouts, add in the various different template elements and do what you want it to do. Same thing goes for styling. You could easily create your own CSS framework, your something like core framework, for example, pull that in and tell it to use that and reference that to do the design work for you. It's up to you how you want to work, or alternatively, you could have worked with Tailwind. Entirely up to you. So we'll say now we've got everything basically the way we want it. What will be the next thing to do? Well, once you've saved it, you can preview this in a new browser window. There's the site. As you can see, everything is working and looks exactly the same as it does in the development environment. So we know that all works. This is now on a temporary domain on GitHub. But once you're finished and you're happy with everything, then what you can do is you can then go and commit this. So by committing this, we basically push what we have here on our local environment up to our GitHub branch. In this example, it's the main branch, but like we said earlier on, you could easily create additional branches should you want to. We'll just hit commit. We'll give this a message. We'll call this view 0.1 and we'll commit and push. That will push that up to GitHub. And there you go. It's done. That's now been sent up to GitHub into the main branch. Job done. We can publish this. We can do whatever we want here. Now we can carry on working with it. But that's a kind of very brief overview of how to get set up and started using Phantom Studio or PhantomWP, whichever it is at the time of actually watching this. Basically the same kind of thing. So we've seen how to set it up, connect everything up, connect it to our MCP, in our case Codex, but Claude and Cursor are available. You can easily use the integrated AI tool if you want to use the API. We've seen how to connect it to an existing WordPress website, pull that data in, use it like you've seen here for pulling in information from posts, but you could do the same with pages or any other kind of custom content you have on a site. And how we can then push that up to a commit inside GitHub. These are the key things you need to get your head around. And once you've kind of got that, you can then start moving forward with more advanced kind of workflows. But hopefully you found this interesting. I will put a link to the developers, both his YouTube channel and the website, so you can check that out yourself. And I would recommend that you do. As always, all applicable links will be in the description. My name is Paul C. And until next time, take care.